Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to another Between Takes episode of Missing Frames. I'm your host, Sean Eastridge. We're continuing our Sundance 2020 coverage. Wow, that's a lot of coverage, Sean. Yes, it is. Thank you so much for noticing. But in this episode, we speak with cinematographer Eric Branco. Now, he's worked on films like Clemency, VHS, and most recently, he shot Radha Blink's The 40-Year-Old Version, which premiered at Sundance 2020. So the movie just got purchased by Netflix, which means you will likely be able to watch it very soon, and you absolutely should. It's so funny. It's sincere. It's authentic. It's all those great adjectives. Just apply them to this movie. It's really, really great. I so enjoyed it. We talk a little bit about the black and white cinematography, the challenges of shooting black and white, and all kinds of great stuff. It's like a real deep dive. Anyone who is a cinematographer out there or a camera person, this is going to be a great conversation to tune into. Additionally, before we get into that interview, I've got some red carpet interviews I got to throw out there. So I actually got to attend the film's red carpet premiere at Sundance. It was the first red carpet I went to at Sundance, and I spoke with a few of the film's stars as well as one of the producers. So we're going to kick off the episode with those interviews, and then we'll dive right into Eric's interview. So to kick everything off, we have one of the stars of the film, Imani Lewis. Let's talk a little bit about this movie, because first of all, I read the premise and it sounds wonderful.
Hilarious.
How was it pitched to you? Did you get a script, or did you talk to Radha about the part, or how did it work?
It's so funny. I was at a premiere for a different film that I did that made it to Sundance last year, and she was at the premiere, and she came up to me and was like, I want you to audition for this film that I have this summer. And I auditioned, and the chemistry was amazing. Like, it was fantastic. So big shout out to Radha Blank. Thank you so much for seeing the potential in me. It's great. Yeah, we're here.
So when you're reading the script and you're looking at the part, are you immediately like connecting with the character, or are you trying to think about...
Well, for one, it's super duper New York. I'm from New York. Radha's from New York. The entire cast is from New York. So reading it, I was like, oh, this feels like how me and my friends talk. Like, this is great. Like, yes. And then it's hilarious. Like, but the underlining message is so dope. Just jump out there and be yourself and chase your dreams no matter what the odds are, you know?
What other lessons did you take from this experience that you think you're going to bring to other things you do?
If anything, when you see the film, you'll start to understand more the idea of her trying to, like, encourage these young kids from New York that don't think past New York, and you'll get them to open their minds up and understand that their art means something, and that they mean something, and that, you know, if they jump for it and they go for the stars, then anything can happen, because she is that example, you know, and I think she learns that through having them with her, you know.
Have you gotten to see it with an audience yet? So this is going to be your first time seeing it.
Yeah.
That's going to be really awesome. I'm so excited for you.
I'm so excited.
Now, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Why are we don't even have to question it.
Right,
It is a statement of purpose and enthusiasm.
Now it's just time to show everybody how great it is.
We're ready.
Yes.
We're ready to see it. Thank you so much. Take care. Next up, we have another star, Peter Kim, who plays Radha's best friend in the film. So tell me a little bit about how you got involved with this. Did Radha come to you? Did you get a script? Like, how did that process work?
Actually, Radha and I have known each other for a number of years through the New York City theater scene. And, we were originally supposed to make this as a web series, and then cut 2 years later, she decided to make it into a feature, and she wrote the part with me in mind, which is a rarity in this business, and she gave me a lot of agency to advocate for this character. I play Archie Choi. He's Korean American, he's gay, he's opinionated, outspoken. He also happens to be Radha's childhood best friend and her agent. So, sort of like maybe not so many boundaries there, you know? So she really let me help create him, and she was so open to my suggestions and my thoughts, and which is also a rarity, you know? It's a real honor to play someone like Archie, because I myself am Korean American, I'm also gay, and it feels like it's a real moment to be a person to speak on behalf of other Asian folk and other LGBTQ individuals.
That's awesome. I had no idea. That's so cool. So bringing that to the table, there's a lot of diversity in this movie. I want to hear more about just like what that means and like what it's like to be able to go to work every day and have this amazing diverse cast.
Yeah, it is sort of rare. Radha, she wrote it. She directed it, she stars in it, she's a producer on it. Even behind the scenes, it was very diverse as well. And I think that is sort of uncommon in my experience, and I've been in the biz for a while. So just on top of all of that, the movie itself is just so funny and has so much heart. And ultimately, it's about finding your voice, or it's a coming of age story at 40, and like being a creative person, pursuing a creative life at 25 is very different than pursuing one at 40. And the costs are different. And so I feel like anyone that try to pursue anything and that's like in their 40s will definitely relate to it. And if they're not, they'll still relate to it because it's just so funny. Yeah. I also, like, I don't know, it's just great to see, like, POCs in a feature doing comedy.
Yeah.
And it's not about, like, suffering or about our identities, It's just so fully integrated into the story.
Just organically, like, people just living their lives.
And also, as I was telling Radha, I feel like it's a rarity to see a black woman and an Asian man as besties.
Yeah.
Have we ever seen that? I mean, like maybe like in Master of None with like Aziz and Lena Waithe, who Lena happens to be like the lead producer on the movie. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I think Lena and her production company Hillman Grad, they're advocating for stories like this, and so it feels really wonderful just to be part of hopefully a continuing new wave of diverse voices.
As you're developing this character, you talked a little bit about that. Do you guys improvise a lot, or is it script? Like, how much of it is like? Where do you find that balance? If there is that?
The funny thing about me and Radha is that whenever we get together, we end up becoming like 13-year-old boys, and so we just start riffing and just sort of like. Our chemistry, I think people have said it's pretty infectious. Yes. So we have a lot of fun together. However, in terms of the writing of the movie, it's pretty tightly written.
Okay.
And there's like a little room for ad-libbing and stuff like that, but I kind of defer to Radha as to when she felt she wanted that or not.
But you got to have fun.
I mean, like, yeah. I was telling Radha, I was like, I'm playing a clown in this movie, in the sense of like, in acting school, there's like everyone says like you have your own clown, not like a
literal clown,
like a scary clown, but like your own inner clown, which is like your 5-year-old self. And Radha was like, oh, totally. She's like, I'm the straight man in this movie, and everyone around me are clowns. And I was like, that is 100% right. Yeah. I was like, I am fully a clown in this, And so Reed Birney, who plays Josh Whitman, and Reed's like this amazing Tony Award-winning actor, you'll probably be speaking to him in a minute. We were joking on set about how large our performances were, and if we could like outsize each other in terms of our largeness. So it was just a delight all around. And, to shoot in New York, which is like, I grew up in Jersey, but I spent so much time in New York, and it was just a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much for chatting.
Yeah, it was great.
I am so excited to see the movie.
Yeah, I am too.
And next up, we have Reed Birney, who kind of is the villain. I'll let him explain it.
What are you representing?
I'm representing the Nerd Party. I thought you were like, this is my cheat sheet.
Of course.
It says all your beautiful faces on it, so I know exactly who I'm talking to.
I wish I had one.
It's all right. If you don't remember my name by the end of this.
Sean.
Reed. We're already doing a good job. This is great. Best interview ever.
Maybe we should stop now.
Let's stop. This is it. So, Reed, tell me a little bit about how you got involved.
I just was offered the part out of the blue, which was always thrilling when you get an offer. And then it actually turned out to be something that was exciting and interesting and fun. So, and we finished it in September, and it's now January, and we're here. It's miraculous.
How much of it was on the page, and how much did you have to kind of workshop it a little bit with Radha and talk about it?
Well, some of the others had done actual workshops of it a year ago. I was not part of that, but it was all on the page. We didn't really improv at all. But Radha was very, very cool with my... I wanted him to look a certain way. And... I'm sort of...
Give me
I'm
a little...
the closest thing to a bad guy in the thing. I'm the creepy New York producer that's sort of blocking her way to happiness and success. The one that promises her the moon and then doesn't deliver.
Was that tough, or did you have fun doing that?
Totally fun.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a revenge fantasy on my part about some New York types that I was happy to make fun of. But she was, when I sort of showed up with the look, she was like, "Oh yes, this is great." So it's the most extreme look I've ever had in a movie.
All right.
Yeah, I've got big. It's very goofy.
I'm so excited to see this.
Are you
I'm
seeing
so
it today?
bummed. I'm not. I can't get the. It's packed.
You can't get in.
It's packed.
You'll be able to see it.
I'll see it. I'm going to see it because I love the concept of the movie.
Yeah,
it seems like so much fun.
And I guess it's gorgeous. I haven't seen it either.
Yeah. So and it's black and white.
Black and white.
I love the cinematography.
I think she just, thought those Woody Allen movies, just those Valentines to New York City. I think she really wanted to honor those.
I'm like looking at around the room right now as more people come in, and there's so much talent, and there's so much diversity, and there's so much going on in front of, behind the camera. What was it like to be a part of a crew like this and a cast like this? Where some of these voices that we don't get to see a lot.
Yes, but so authentic, and her love letter to New York is so authentic, and that of course includes all the diversity of New York, and it's all there. I think I'm the oldest person in the movie, so I'm representing the old people.
But young at heart.
Young at heart. And that's the thing. There were a couple of scenes we filmed that I was surrounded by all the students in the movie. They're so funny and great, and the whole thing was a treat.
Do you have a particular favorite memory on set? Just something that stands out?
I just remember we laughed an awful lot. Yeah. And, it was a little bit of guerrilla filmmaking. There was, because the budget wasn't that high, and we had to work fast. But that's always really exciting, I think, because you problem solve on your feet. And I've made a couple of big studio pictures, and I'm always amazed at, the hundreds of people doing things. And so when you've got a crew of 5 or 8, you're like, oh, well, you can do this with 5 or 8 people. You don't need 100 people carrying ladders around.
And you're at Sundance now.
And now we're at Sundance. And so, we're really the little engine that could. It's really great.
I love that. Well, Reed, thank you so much. Congratulations. I'm excited to see this.
I hope
Have
you
like
gotten
a chance to see it yet?
No, I'm seeing it for the first time.
With an audience.
Yeah.
And now we have Jacob Ming Trent, who is there's a lot. Everyone is funny in this movie, but he might have been one of the absolute funniest characters in the film. Jacob, tell me a little bit about this movie, your involvement, and how did you get involved? Do you know Radha? It seems like Radha's got a couple besties on this press line. So how did you get involved?
I know of her because I've been in the theater for a long time. So I got the script. It was dope. It was hot, and the character that I was playing was it was just interesting. I haven't done anything like that before, so I was like, all right, I'll take it.
What about the character made him interesting?
I'll just say this: he's homeless. He's a homeless man, but he's edgy. And he kind of has there's some humor in it, but still grounded in a reality. I really love that. He says some truths that are very funny, but also keeps it very real.
So how does this compare to doing theater?
Theater is hard work. It's like day in and day out, grind. Film and television, you get those 5 takes. You're trying to land it in those 5 takes, but then it's forever, but then you never go back to it.
Right.
In theater, you're doing it every night. But recently, I've been doing a lot more film and television. I haven't really been on the stage for about 3 years now.
Oh, wow. So which one do you like more? Do you want to go back to theater at some point?
Of course, but the paycheck, you know what I mean?
I hear you.
So, last year I did The Watchmen, which was great.
Yeah.
That was also a really interesting, wild time.
Yeah.
So, but I love film and television.
So what was the process like working with Radha and developing this character? How much say did you have
A lot of
change
say.
from the page?
A lot of say. When I walk the set, before I come, I'm usually prepared. I've thought about it, and then I let the instincts take over. But when she saw what I was doing, she loved it. So we actually didn't converse about it that much.
Okay.
But with props to her, because she's kind of she lets you be an artist, because she is one. So she's like, you can do your thing, I'm doing my thing. And if any time she's like, I don't know about that, she's gonna let you know, But no, I did prepare at home, brought it in, and it just clicked. It actually just clicked right away.
What do you take from this experience and this character that you think you'll bring with you to other performances, other work you do?
You know, it's true that there are no small roles. There's no small projects. You got to bring 100% of your game to everything you do. I truly believe that. And this movie's a testament to that. It's about heart. So you bring your heart, you have something to say, you have something authentic to deliver. People are going to listen. It's true. And so in an age when we're kind of making a lot of reboots and we're kind of, which is fine, or we're turning older stories and just, you know, making movies out of them, this is actually a really fresh thing.
Yeah. And we were talking about how diverse the cast is, like both the cast and crew.
Right.
So in front of and behind the camera.
Yeah.
And to see this kind of stuff happening, and it feels like a little bit of a rarity. It doesn't happen often. How does it feel to be a part of something like that?
Oh, you love it. Yesterday we were going around doing a bunch of press and just looking at all the color, you know, all sorts of people. White, black, Hispanic, some people you don't know where the hell they're from, you know, which I love too. So, that's what it's about. A more inclusive world. This is an inclusive movie. You know, so you're going to see people working in all different stratospheres in this movie. That's what it's about, so that people of multiple experiences can come to and say, oh, I see myself up there, or I learned something. You know, so when those things happen, it's worth it. That's why we do it.
Awesome. Well, Jacob, thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you. All right, and let's wrap up these red carpet interviews with Jordan Fudge, who was one of the film's producers. All right, Jordan, tell me a little bit about how you got involved with this film.
So I launched a film finance fund called New Slate Ventures earlier last year.
Tell me about that.
Well, my principal business is in venture capital, and so I was used to working with tech companies, and I realized there's a huge space in the market to make films that go to the streaming companies, which also happen to be tech companies.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make a ton of films, and so we raised $100 million for that. And so when I read the 40-year version, I met Rada, and then Lena came on, and it was just like this rolling momentum of just like, I want to be involved in this, and her voice is just so distinct and unique that it was just a no-brainer. We had to be involved with Rada Blank.
That's awesome. So you kind of made the transition to film. What's that been like?
It's been really interesting. I actually started my career at 20th Century Fox, working in digital strategy.
So you were already in that role.
Yeah, I studied film in college and
Same.
economics.
Yeah.
And so I was able to marry the two at Fox, and I realized that there was a huge opportunity. And so, I went over to tech for a little bit to kind of get some credibility and prove myself, and made some really great investments, and then was able to raise some money to do this thing.
Yeah.
And this has been really fun. It's a really fun exercise in just left brain, right brain, because the tech side of my life is very much analytical and very objective.
Yeah.
And then over here you have this very creative, fun, subjective environment where you can really create and have fun.
And how do you balance the two?
Well, one, I have a great team, and so all of my associates are just happy to do what they do and love what they're doing, and so I have a lot of support. But also, I honestly really enjoy just being able to take half of my day and spend it on film, and half of the day and do it in tech, and so I've been enjoying that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so, getting involved with Rada, talking about how you just were brought to this project. Did you meet her beforehand? Do you typically get to read the script and be involved from the beginning?
No, we were involved from the very beginning. Our agents at WME were really hot on this project, and they kind of are really great at putting people together and knowing who's going to be sort of kindred spirits creatively and otherwise. And so they brought me into a room with Lena and Rada on the phone, and we all sort of vibed, and it was just really good energy, honestly. As silly as that sounds, it's actually what it was. We had such a good time in that meeting. We're going to make a great movie together.
And so being involved with the shoot, did you get to go out and see it?
I was there for the first week of shooting.
Yeah. Did you get to have a moment where you were like,
it was incredible.
This is working.
I saw Rada both directing, acting, and being a part of all of it at the same time. I had never seen that before, and it was just amazing to see her execution. She was able to, and she's never done this before, and so she's just a natural. She really came out the gate volcanically hot, directed, acted, and managed the whole process, and made a fabulous film, I think. So I'm really excited for her and her moment, and I think this is going to be great for her.
And there's a lot of buzz, man. There's so much. How does that be? From everyone's perspective, that's great, but I bet from your perspective, hearing about...
It's really fun. It's surreal almost, Try not to dwell on it too much, but it's really fun to really see that people reacted positively to the film. and that, you know, people are excited about it, and just the incoming narrative of like her voice being a part of, you know, Hollywood now.
We'll talk a little bit about that, because I've talked with a few different people, and what's amazing to me about this, what's amazing in general, is the amount of diversity behind the camera, in front of the camera, and getting all these voices heard, and hearing it in a way that's very organic and like really beautiful.
You know, I think a lot of people would describe it as fresh, but fresh is just, I think, another word for just having a diverse population of people behind the screen, in front of the screen, and coming together to collaborate. And so I think, you know, it's this moment that we're in right now as a society, as a culture, where people are searching for that. There's a demand for that voice and for that newness, and I think that is really, you know, why I got involved, because I wanted to be able to usher that in. And I think she's just getting started. I mean, this is her first film. I mean, she's gonna be around.
That's
gonna
great.
Be great.
That's awesome. Well, Jordan, thank you so much. It's a
Thank you
pleasure
so
chatting
much.
with you.
Wonderful
Have
chatting.
fun. All right, and that's it for the red carpet interviews. Let's go ahead and dive right into the Eric Bronco interview. Hope you enjoy it. All right. Well, Eric, first of all, I want you to know that the 40-year-old version was like my movie to see at the festival this year.
Nice.
It was It was the first one I tried to see when I got there. I managed to do the red carpet and missed the screening, and then I kept trying to see it, but it was so popular I couldn't. And then I saw it a few days into the festival, and it was so good. It was so funny
I'm so
and
glad
charming.
to hear that.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of buzz around the movie, right?
Yeah, Rada, the director, ended up taking home Best Director at the festival, and we sold to Netflix.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
And was the first time seeing it at Sundance? Was that your first time seeing it?
Yes and no, right? So I always like to see, like, one of my kind of like mantras is that the movie is not actually done until an audience sees it. So I always like my first time seeing it to be with an audience. That said, like, there are responsibilities I do have. I have to watch, you know, for the color correct and all that stuff. But, you know, that's without sound. That's, you know, not the final. I always wait to see it in its final form with an audience.
And how was that, seeing it at Sundance with an audience?
It was amazing. The response, like, you know, Sundance, I think, is kind of known for its kind of, you know, somber, hard-hitting dramas, which is what I'm used to seeing at Sundance and what I previously had at Sundance. So, you know what I mean?
So this is just a slightly different experience.
Yeah, right. So it was crazy to see so many people came out. It was crazy. You know, people are laughing and yelling along with the movie and everything. It was a really, really, really fun time.
Where did you get your start in terms of your film career? Did you start off as a cameraman in the electrical department? When did you start, and what movies inspired you to go into the direction of cinematography?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a long story. I grew up in New York City, which one of the major benefits of is the ability to kind of be surrounded by the arts and world-class museums and all that stuff. So I kind of, you know, I was an artistic kid, knew I wanted to do something in the arts, something in storytelling. And as a kid, I used to act. So I was in a bunch of off-Broadway plays and stuff. And I thought that my path was going to be kind of like a writer, director, screenwriter, actor, you know, kind of in the like Woody Allen, Spike Lee kind of mold.
Or the Rada Blank category.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then once I started making movies with my buddies, like in high school, I realized that I had no one to hold the camera. And so I stepped back from in front of the camera and started shooting, and absolutely fell in love with it and really continued from there. I went to film school briefly, was a double major directing and cinematography, and eventually left film school and started working in the lighting department of like indie films in New York. And that really kind of turned into my real film school. I worked with amazing DPs and also not so amazing DPs, which were equally as valuable a learning experience. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. I kind of worked my way up from the bottom rung of the lighting department.
And this is your second feature?
So it is not. I've been shooting a long time. This is probably my like 6th or 7th, but this is kind of the second of what's this like kind of new tier of movies that like I know people will see as we're shooting them.
I mean, you've been having a pretty good past couple years.
Yeah. It's been amazing.
Do you remember what it was like meeting Rada for the first time? What those conversations were like, the early conversations about the look and feel of the movie?
So I've known Rada for a while. We met at a festival maybe like 5 years ago in Philly called Black Star, and she actually performed at the festival as Rodimus Prime. And I saw her at the festival and I was like, man, that is like, I would love to work with her one day. And then we kind of, became friendly. We would see each other at festivals and that kind of thing. And so Yeah, so she hit me up to talk about 40-Year-Old Virgin, which was surprising because I knew her as a writer and a playwright, like a TV writer and a playwright. I didn't know that she wanted to direct. So that was a pleasant surprise. And we met in New York. Funny story, I was actually at Panavision. I had just finished a short film called Cap, which screened at the American Black Film Festival and is on HBO right now. But that was in black and white, shot digitally, and whenever I shoot black and white, I use color filtration, which
how does that work?
So it seems counterintuitive, but like you're still manipulating colors and tonality, even if you're intending to project in black and white. You're not capturing reds and blues and greens. You're capturing a variation of grays, but you can affect how strongly those tones come in. Those colors come in and are translated to black and white. So, say you're shooting a red rose, right? The red of the petals and the green of the stem in gray are similar tones.
Okay.
But if you were to throw a red filter in front of the lens, the red filter would allow the red petals to come through pretty much untouched, but it would darken the green, right? Because red and green are kind of opposite on the color wheel. So it would really make the petals pop.
Gotcha.
Out of that picture. So that's kind of like one of the things I often do when I'm shooting black and white. It was much more, this was a much more popular technique back when black and white was kind of the only medium available to filmmakers and photographers. It's since kind of fallen by the wayside. Not too many people have, these filters anymore, but nobody ever really developed these filters for black skin in black and white.
Right.
They were pretty much all developed for bringing out Caucasian skin tones.
Gotcha.
Which was something I ran into on this film Cap. And so I was just, kind of doing the nerd stuff that DPs do on their off time. I was at Panavision trying to come up with some filters and some, filter cocktails for shooting darker skin on black and white. While I was there, an email comes in, and it was the script for 40-Year-Old Virgin, and I opened it up and looked at it, and it said A New York Tale in black and white.
So it was a sign.
Right. So I was like, oh my God, it was kind of everything that I had been thinking about, on my own. And so next time I was in New York, I sat down with Rada, and I actually brought like a suitcase full of like black and white photography books. And we sat down and went through the books and, and just had a great conversation, and that was it.
Do you remember kind of just brainstorming and coming up with, all right, we want to capture New York, we want to do black and white. What were some other topics of conversation that came up?
Yeah, so it was, the kind of like mandates, the things that were set in stone was that it was going to be black and white. It was going to be on 35. She had done some tests, I think like a year prior. I think they had the money to go, and then something fell apart. It changed or whatever, and they didn't end up shooting. But they had gone up kind of into the testing stage a year prior, where she had tested like 35 black and white versus 16 black and white versus, I think, like the monochrome Alexa. And she had really settled on 35. So, those were, I think she had met a couple DPs that were like, well, maybe we should just stick to digital. And, they make, they have really great monochromatic sensors for digital now, both the Alexa and on Red. And so I think, I think she was kind of feeling me out to see how I responded to the idea of shooting on film, shooting on black and white. She wanted the whole movie to be handheld and kind of have this kind of like, present doc feel, if you will, which excited me. I love shooting handheld. I love kind of being in the scene with the actors in that sense. And in Clemency, my previous feature was like a very, very kind of restrained, held back look, and so I was excited for the ability to do something a little more energetic.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, as a DP, because this is always a conversation that's been coming up, and we've had, like Roger Deakins saying one thing.
Yeah.
Do you notice a difference between digital and film?
Whatever
go with him?
Says.
Gotcha.
Yeah, go with that.
Hey, don't sell yourself short, man. You're working. This is great. So you're getting there. You will get there. But like, what do you think? I mean, what do you think capturing on film is doing for it? Is it just the experience and the energy of having that kind of camera on set and knowing that you have to be a little bit more careful and a little more? Well, is it just that, or do you feel like there is something you get from 35 millimeter versus digital?
I think that shooting digitally, you can get an image that is near imperceptible to one that was shot on film. However, in my experience, it's going to take you some work to get there. And while you're on your way there, everyone is going to be looking at a digital image that does not look like film. And the biggest difference between digital and film is that I think film really empowers the cinematographer. You know, you don't have 10 people at the monitor seeing kind of exactly what is being recorded and offering their opinions. You know, I've done some jobs where it does turn into kind of like DP by committee, especially if the director is not, you know, strong-willed and the producers are kind of throwing their muscle around. It will kind of, you know, that process will kind of get diluted. But that's not really the case in film, because we had great taps. We had these video taps by IndieCam called Indie Assist on our cameras, which were like HD taps, phenomenal, way better than anything I used before, you know, when I was shooting film like 10 years ago. But still, it's not like an accurate image to what the developed film is going to look like. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's good for framing, it's good for kind of like a general idea tone, but it doesn't have the kind of the nuance that the printed film will have.
So it's really up to you to make sure it looks good.
Yeah, so it's, you know, it's this kind of thing of people really just have to trust you. And then you have to make sure that when they see those dailies, like, you didn't betray their trust.
Gotcha. I mean, that sounds not exhausting, but maybe was there a little bit more pressure? Or was that like pressure you were like, all right, let's do this? I
respond really well to pressure. I work best under pressure. So it was a great experience for me.
And this was Radha's, it's her directorial debut as a filmmaker in general?
Yeah.
Wow. So what was that like? Were there any early concerns as far as like, okay, are we going to be able to communicate? Are we going to be able to work together on this? Or what was it like working with her as a first time director?
I mean, luckily Radha had a really, really clear vision for the film and a really clear vision of what she wanted. And I find that that's probably, you know, the most important thing you can have as a director is just the ability to know what you want and understand exactly what you're going for. And
this was obviously very low budget. What are some of the challenges you ran into while shooting?
I mean, the budget was a huge challenge. You know, we were a lot of our like bigger lighting setups. We were day playing those lights. Like, they weren't lights we carried for the run of the show. So it was that kind of scheduling stuff where it was like, okay, it's, you know, we're shooting this scene. We need to make sure these lights are ordered for the scene, and we need to make sure they get back on time, you know, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a struggle. And then also like just permitting was tough. We were shooting up in Harlem right at the same time as West Side Story. Which was like
just a little indie movie.
Yeah, like I've never seen anything like it. I would get off the train to go to the production office, and I would just be in like 1962. Like I've never experienced anything. I would look down, and it would just be 10 blocks of like period cars and storefronts and such, and then I turn the other way, and it would be like 10 blocks going the other way.
Right.
Like, you know, and we're trying to like figure out how to shoot on like our little corner, trying to make it look, you know,
modern.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so we had some permitting issues just because the neighborhood, there had been it's such like an old section of Harlem, there's so much character that a lot of films had been shooting there, and we kind of came at the tail end of that. And we caught some flack from neighbors and stuff who, like, West Side Story would be there at night shooting. They leave, we'd come set up, and the neighbors would come out and start yelling, and they'd be like, "You said you were going to be done by 6 a.m." And we'd have to explain that we're a whole new movie.
Right. You're going to have to deal with that.
You know,
and they're like, where are the song and dance numbers? What's going on?
Exactly. So
well, you did such a great job. Like, there's so many different vibes of New York. I know a lot of it takes place in Harlem, but you go to a lot of different locations, and there's some higher class stuff. There's some lower class stuff. What was it like trying to figure out how to light this, give each different space in New York a distinctive personality? I don't know that that's something that you have to try to do. I think if you're, if you are in a neighborhood and you're, I think it's probably best to not impose your will and not try and make it feel distinct, because the neighborhoods do feel so distinct already. I think it's just about capturing what's there and being aware of what the differences of these neighborhoods are and trying to highlight that. Did you have a favorite space that you guys worked in? We were in the Signature Theater on 42nd and 10th, which is this like beautiful Frank Gehry designed space that opened up in like 2012, I want to say. And I, interestingly enough, I had shot a documentary about the opening of the theater back when it first opened. So I was kind of familiar with the space. I was familiar with the space and kind of like the backstage areas and everything. And because I shot that documentary, I actually been like a subscriber to their
theater for a couple of years. So a good amount of the plays I had seen in New York over the last couple of years were at the Signature. So it was really, really great to kind of be back in there with this movie, just because it felt so familiar and felt like home. And it's also just like a beautiful, beautiful space.
And you guys, obviously, there were challenges involved, but was there anything that when you look at the film now, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we pulled that off, or something that maybe turned out even better than you thought it would based on the actual shooting day?
I mean, I can't believe there's kind of, not to give anything away, but there's kind of like a big like theater play in the film. And like every time I watch that, I can't believe how well it turned out, because that was definitely like, it's just one of those things where like we only like, it's like a 500 seat theater and we only had like 50 extras. And you know what I mean? Like every angle we looked, like every extra we had was in that shot. And then like, when we turned around, everybody would stand up and rearrange and then go sit down somewhere else. And like,
right.
You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where, you're shooting it and you're like, everything in the frame is working, but it does feel like you're operating like in an empty room, if that makes sense.
Right.
And then, and there's also a play happening on stage. Our amazing production designer, Valeria De Felici, designed this kind of set. There were just multiple things happening in my head. Like I'm worrying about lighting the movie, and I'm also concerned with lighting the play that's happening within the movie.
Yeah.
So that was a whole separate kind of like lighting design that we had to do and set up for the stage.
It's like lighting Inception. It's a movie
right.
within
so there's
a movie.
Like several layers of things happening, and it's one of those things where like when you're doing that, you're so concentrated on making sure that you're like crossing all the T's and dotting the I's, that you're not really experiencing it. And so that was one of those scenes when I saw it in the film, I was like, okay, like it works, we did it. You know what I mean?
That's
like
great.
I was just in the scene.
Those are probably, I mean, obviously there's so much to coordinate and stuff. Did you find anything challenging? I mean, it seems like it would be easier. So much of the stuff feels so naturalistic, and like you said, it's handheld. It seems like there's a lot of natural lighting being used. Did you find difficulties being outdoors and doing that stuff, or was that relatively simple? And I guess I'm referring to, there's a lot of stuff shot at night, and I don't know if it's more difficult to light something in black and white when it's dark out, but I feel like there would be unique challenges to that.
So the movie, I'll answer to a few things here. So the movie, hopefully, like we were going for a very, very naturalistic feel. However, I'm not sure that anything in the film is available light.
Oh wow.
The black and white stock is the black and white stock is Kodak 5222, which is kind of people call double X, but it hasn't really been updated since like the 50s. So it's a very, very slow speed stock. It's like 200 ASA, which is just, if it's not lit, you're not going to get it. So that was a challenge, getting, I think one of those things, a big difference between, this is not so much a difference between shooting film or digital, just a difference in kind of how much more sensitive digital is. I'm very often working at low light levels. Like if it's a scene that's supposed to be dark, the room is going to be dark. And, I'm a DP that very much lights in a way where what it feels like in the room is what I'm trying to capture. With this, it was kind of an exercise in, there are dark scenes, there are scenes where there's a lot of shadow and it's night and whatever else, but the room itself is bright as hell. So it's about kind of like training your brain to understand what it's going to look like once it hits the emulsion and what that's going to look like on the print, and not kind of lighting off what it feels like in the room. That said, so we did use some color stock in the film, which we tested extensively because, with kind of the lower sensitivity of this black and white film, we were using, like shooting outside, like night exteriors in New York was not going to be an option without lighting. It's one of those things where, if I had unlimited money, I might just replace all the street lights on the block, you know what I mean? And shoot the black and white stock. But on our limited budget and limited time, really, it was one of those things where it was like, we could have parked a crane at the end of the block and like blasted light down the street, and it would have looked great. It would have looked like in kind of an old Hollywood, would have had like an old Hollywood look, but it wouldn't have looked like what night looks like in New York. And that was something that was really important for me to capture, and I think Rada as well. And so we ended up testing ways to, kind of capture night under available light. We ended up settling on, I don't know how like technical you want me to go.
You can go technical. Look, let's do it. Let's go all in.
So
This stuff
we
is
ended up-
fascinating. So
All right,
I love
so
hearing
we
about
ended
it.
up we ended up doing a ton of testing and settling on Kodak 5219, which is a 500T speed film, which is kind of like the standard issue film these days. It's like their Vision 3 stock. It's like very clean, very little grain, like looks beautiful. But what we were trying to get the grain is to match this older black and white stock. So we ended up pushing it 2 stops and effectively rating it at 2000 ASA instead of 500.
Okay.
And then we also did a bleach bypass on it, which totally distorts the colors. But one of the, we were having trouble kind of matching the color stock to our black and white stock. And one of the things that, Rada felt really strongly about, and I, and she got me on board as well, was that she didn't want to do digital trickery. She didn't want to, shoot color stock and then desaturate it and like add grain to it. Right. She felt like that was too much of a cheat. She wanted really to accomplish everything photochemically.
I love that, but I'm sure, that creates a lot of headaches, I'm sure, but I do love the commitment to that.
I mean, that's the stuff that excites me. It's like,
yeah,
that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, all right, not the first road I would have gone down, but like, now how do I make this work?
Yeah.
And we ended up doing a bleach bypass on it because with black and white film, you don't bleach the negative. All the silver stays on the emulsion, and that's kind of what gives it, black and white film, this kind of like ethereal glow. You get halation around like really bright sources and things, and everything just kind of has this like glamorous quality. So we actually didn't bleach the color stock, and then when we desaturated it, we found that it kind of retained that same characteristic as the black and white, and that kind of was our like aha moment where we realized that the color stock was going to work. So that said, kind of everything I said about it not being dark in the room when we were shooting, throw that out for the color stock, because we were shooting like out on the street with very little additional lighting. I lit all the actors when we were outside in the street doing our exteriors, but not the street itself. So like the what the street was kind of set the levels, and then it was just a matter of making sure that the actors, were lit and looked good wherever they were standing.
Gotcha.
Which involved, rather than like a big crane with lights at the end of the block, we would get a space in a building across the street from where we were shooting. And we would, take very small lights and just shoot them right down onto the street. And they felt like they were in the world. And we never had to worry about seeing our lights. We could look 360. And because everything was coming from buildings above, we were safe to look anywhere.
And talk a little bit about, there are bits of color in the movie. There are little kind of almost not dream sequences, but semi dream sequences. And those kind of have a specific look and feel too. Was there any different process as far as lighting those, or did you kind of use the same approach?
Use the same approach. We wanted those to kind of have more of like a 16 mil type feel. Feel a little kind of like, we just wanted it to feel different from the rest of the film. So, we shot 35, but we were kind of treating them as though they were like 16 mil, like reversal stock. So those became this kind of like hyper saturated, pretty grainy type things, kind of peppered throughout the film. But yeah.
I love that. I think you guys pulled it off. I mean, the movie, like I said, I could have sworn it was natural light. I'm not like a DP or a cinematographer, but like I love natural light so much that I feel like I've started to detect when it's like, I don't think this is, so you guys totally fooled me. It looks so good. And I love, it's
cool.
a beautiful
so
film.
Much.
So congratulations on that. And what's next for you, Eric? Like, what are you working on next?
I don't know. There's a couple things circling. There's a TV show, there's a few movies circling this year. So we'll see what's next, but I'm not sure
anything particular you want to work on, like a kind of movie, a particular genre, or?
No, I'm just trying to tell stories that I haven't seen on film before. You know what I mean? So that's kind of that's always something that attracts me. When someone has like a story from a perspective that, is not the most common, I immediately respond to that. So that's kind of if I had to pick a genre, that's the genre.
I love it. So that's all I got. I got one more. That's a lie. I've got one more question. My podcast, Missing Frames, we watch all the movies we should have seen by this point in our lives. So what is a movie that you need to see that you still haven't?
There are movies that I want to see. that I only want to see in the theater. So, like, I've never seen Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh,
because
yeah,
I don't want to watch Lawrence of Arabia on my iPad. So, so that, I kind of like, I keep like a running tally of like things that, of like, like movies and plays and things that are whenever there's a revival, or they re-release in the theater for like an anniversary or something like that, I need to go see. So yeah, I got plenty, but Lawrence of Arabia is definitely a big one.
That's awesome. Well, Eric, thank you so much. Congratulations again. I'm so happy for you guys, and
thank you.
Wish you all the best.
Appreciate it. It's great talking to you.
All right, and that is it. Thank you so much for listening. We've got one more Sundance episode incoming, so stay tuned for that. It's a real doozy. I don't know why I said that. It's a great episode. We've got Brad and Lisa Gullickson from the In the Mouth of Darkness podcast, and I'm so excited for you to hear it. Again, if you like what you're hearing, feel free to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, write a review, and I will read your review in a future episode. You can also follow me on Twitter at YeSeanDoorman, and find me on Instagram too if you're that kind of person, one of those Instagram people. Who even are you? I'm at Sean Doorman. There's no yay on Instagram. I'm sorry. It's not allowed. It's so late when I'm recording. I'm so tired. I'm very, very sorry for all of this, every last bit of it. But thank you again for listening, and I will see you next time.